Heard daily and weekends on Bible School Radio, 91.3 KDKR, Decatur, Dallas, Fort Worth, and on 91.3 KYJC Commerce.
Portions of KDKR programming do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
Well, inflation and your car. Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. Good afternoon, this is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. Tony Joe's here, as he is every Friday, to take your Car Corner questions. The number to call for those questions to talk to Tony Joe, 1-877-913-5357. That is the number to call, and I do have a line open. You can also go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com if you got a question for me. And we'll get you taken care of at the website, prudentmoney.com. 1-877-913-5357. Well, Tony Joe, here we are again. It's another Friday afternoon, and the week seemed to start just a couple of minutes ago.
You know, it's interesting that you love Fridays.
I do love Fridays.
You know, whenever I come in, it's Friday. I'm so glad it's Friday. You know, I hate Fridays.
Why?
Well, for you, it's the end of the week, and you're like, it's Friday. For me, it's payday.
So you have
the
to.
The boys will be lining up when I get back.
They want to be paid.
They get. You know, the funny thing about it that I want to say is that they come to me and stand there and like, how about my paycheck? I'm like, dude, didn't I just pay you last Friday? What is this, becoming a habit or what?
Yeah, really.
But I want to say you look good today, Bob.
Well,
I know you had a meeting. You're all dressed up. People can't see it, but usually around here it's Casual Friday, and I won't mention some of the things, how casual it gets around here. But you look good today.
Well, thank you.
You feel good?
Feel good.
Feeling good. Feeling strong, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Sherry's texting you. Feeling bad. Feeling weak.
No, that's Chris that's texting me,
Oh,
not Sherry.
It looks like Sherry.
Well, you see, if you have the picture that's on your phone, okay?
Right.
Because I think you don't have a phone with. You don't have a phone where you can have pictures, right? You have a flip phone?
No.
So when something alert comes up, that picture lights up, and I happen to have my wife on
so just one picture.
Yeah.
Oh.
See? Great picture of her.
Oh man, technology is amazing.
Yeah, isn't it though? And one of these days, in fact, I may just do it myself and get you a brand new iPhone.
Well, Bob,
What would you do? What would you do with a brand new iPhone?
I have used in the past what you consider a flip phone. You would call it a flip phone. It opens up in two halves.
Yeah, I love the flip phone.
Okay, well, what you don't realize is, and I'm learning, that is a highly sophisticated piece of communication equipment. Not everybody can use one, because I've seen people go, I can't even use that anymore. I forgot how to use those things.
Well, you know what they used to call it? They used to call it the Razor.
The Razor.
And I bet you there's R-A-Z-O-R. I think that's right. And I bet you there's people listening right now that used to have one and wish they still had one, because you don't get all the gadgets on it. You know, with your iPhone, you get all the gadgets. I can't see you taking a break to watch some TikTok or anything. You probably don't even know what TikTok is.
Tic Tacs? Like you eat? You mean that go rattle, rattle, rattle when you walk?
Oh man, no, TikTok. It's a social media site.
Social media.
Yeah, the cricket.
As in, what do you mean, social media? Like,
like Facebook.
Oh yeah. What
Twitter, which is now called X.
What you said, yeah.
Okay.
I know all about that stuff.
Okay, Tony Joe, a lot more work than I thought you were going to take. 1-877-913-5357. You know what I am interested in, though?
Can you Instagram me sometime? Is that a thing? I heard that on the radio one time. Instagram me.
Okay. I don't think that.
Okay, moving on before we lose any more radio listeners.
Yeah, we don't want the two people who are listening to turn off the radio or listen to music someplace. Okay, so what I am interested in, we really haven't talked that much about it. Obviously, the background in business today for business owners, and we, as consumers, we feel the pinch of inflation, and even though the quote unquote inflation numbers come out, and you go, that's all it's increased. Those are bogus numbers from the standpoint of what real inflation looks like. I've been curious as to how inflation has affected your business as a business owner, and maybe this would give some insight into the struggles as a business owners that you have and translate into higher costs for consumers. What are you seeing across the landscape of the car repair business and prices that are going up? I mean, are you seeing it in parts? You're seeing it in labor? What are you seeing?
Well, of course, labor is something that you don't see. You just have to keep up and judge and kind of see what is going on in that part of the market. Then you have the other end, which is the parts. And I have seen big increases in parts prices. So as the materials that I need to do the job increase, a good business person would increase a certain percentage to keep up with inflation. And I'm not that person, Bob. I'm not that smart. I really have not been. I've been trying not to increase. I've been eating a lot of it, but really, I got to tell you, it's starting to hurt. I'm, as a business owner, it's my responsibility to, increase to keep up with the cost of my expenses and so on and so forth. And as a responsible business owner, you have to do that. And in my case, I've prolonged it as long as I can, and I got to tell you, it's starting to pinch. I'm going to have to increase. But for me, I've held out longer than a lot of others, and the only reason I did that was because I was always hoping that if I could just absorb quite a bit of this for now, prices would come back down in line. And, of course, last night, our president told us that inflation was down to 3%. It had gone down. And I'm thinking, wow, maybe the prices will come down. But we'll see. Because every other time he said inflation is down, the prices haven't been coming down.
Well, and my opinion on this has been that they won't. I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but, it's just to give you an example. It's like all the restaurant owners getting together and going, we've been overcharging. I can't say it, I haven't seen the real numbers, but I would think that the inflation that they've experienced, they're still doing pretty good. But I don't know that. That's unfair to say that. But the bottom line is they're not going to come out and go, we're just going to be real generous and lower everything by 15%. That's not going to happen. If you do eat out, and I think that's one thing we do a lot of in Dallas, Texas, is eat out. It really, the costs are up there.
All right. Well, thinking about what you just said, that does make a lot of sense. And, of course, like taxes, property taxes, things like that, once they go up, they never usually come down.
Yeah.
But if you think a little bit further about this, in my business anyway, and I'm thinking in the restaurant business, same thing. You have to be able to provide to meet your obligations and make a profit. Nobody in the world argues that you have to make a profit. But they do, everybody argues about how much is that profit going to be.
Right.
Okay? Now, think about this. The restaurants and my business, automotive repair, it's a fine line and a balance that you always have to keep track of. And it's constant work and observation because you got to be able to cover your expenses and make a profit. You also have to be competitive. So if you're raising your prices too much, people are not going to come to you because you are no longer competitive. And the thing you said about the restaurants, prices probably will not come down. But if one restaurant starts running specials, then other restaurants are going to have to kind of follow along, or they're in competition with each other. So the market, this is what we call let the market decide,
dictate
right.
the price.
So anyway, back to your question is, I mean, I have to comment on something that I just think about all the time, and that is there's a constant battle with some of the automotive places. Not a lot, but there are some bad guys out there, and most of them are good. But the ones that try to rip people off, not only are the prices going out of control, both parts and labor, but then on top of that, you've got the excessive selling, or what we call upselling.
Right, sure.
And, gosh, that's turning out to be, for some folks on a fixed budget or a meager income, trying to support a family and, that kind of thing. You and I are past that point, but there's a lot of young families that are really struggling with kids and all that. Gosh, it just makes me feel bad, generally.
What's interesting, I was just thinking about this. If you took your prices up X percent, whatever, I wonder because it's not like say I have a water pump that goes out of my car.
Mm-hmm.
It's been years since I've had a water pump. I wouldn't even know what the normal going price for a water pump is. And if you came out and you said, well, Bob, it's going to be $800, I would think $800 is too expensive. I mean, your normal prices, I think people could almost assume. So it's kind of one of those things where do you see the difference between normal prices versus you raising them? You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
It's not normal for you to raise those prices, but for the average person that comes in, they're not really probably even seeing it.
Yeah, maybe, but then again, you do have the added feature today of the internet, and you may not be aware.
Okay,
but people
right.
can shop, and that's something we can talk about later if you want to.
1-877-913-5357. This is Bob Brooks. Stick around. I'll be right back. Hello, this is Bob Brooks. Proverbs 22:3 and Proverbs 27:12 are the exact same verse word for word. I call them the stewardship verses of risk. A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. On the Prudent Money Radio Show, we teach about risk, how to identify it, how to figure it out, and what to do about it. We believe that to be a prudent steward, you have to be a good risk manager. Listen to the Prudent Money Radio Show on Bible School Radio 91.3. Prudent Money, home of the modern-day steward movement.
Hi, I'm Jan Markell, host of Understanding the Times. We're very excited to be a part of Bible School Radio. I hope you will join me Saturday, 10 a.m., for cutting-edge guests and the latest information to help you discern the truth, even the inconvenient truth. We'll help you understand our times and contend for the faith. That's Understanding the Times, Saturday at 10 a.m., right here on Bible School Radio or anytime at olivetreeviews.org.
Dr. Charles Stanley.
God's justice is what people don't like. They want God to be freewheeling. Just give them what they want when they want it, regardless of how they live. That is not the way it is, and it never has been, never will be. There is a just God in heaven who does the right thing.
The teaching of Dr. Charles Stanley on In Touch, helping you grow in Christ every day.
In Touch, weekdays at 12:30, here on KDKR.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. 1-877-913-5357. I do have a line open, and we'd love to hear from you. You brought up something interesting that I didn't think about, is that if I got a water pump, we'll go back to the water pump issue.
Mm-hmm.
I can go online.
Mm-hmm.
I can see what a water pump costs, and I'm going to circle back around to that. And I can probably see updated numbers as to what it costs per labor, just to give me an idea.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But what about the situation where, you get a water pump from China, and you as a mechanic are not going to use an inferior product like that. You're going to use another one. I mean, do people really understand that?
Well, oftentimes they don't, and I would like to comment about that since you brought it up. When you have to have a new fuel pump, let's say, your fuel pump went up. And I've run into this quite a bit, where the price of the fuel pump, for me, in my professional trade, I want to use usually OE, original equipment. I want the pump that came in the car from the dealer, and I want it to be correct with the right pressure and the right amount of volume and things that a lot of folks don't understand what I'm talking about. But you can go online and you can find a fuel pump for $50 for this car. Why is my fuel pump $500 and I can buy one for, say, $100? Well, you can buy it if you want to. And I used to install whatever, hey, you want to buy the pump? I'll put it in. But then you run into problems and management issues and kind of unnecessary battles with people trying to make them understand that if that fuel pump goes bad, I am not going to take it out and put another one in for free. If you want me to take it out so you can send the fuel pump back, get credit and get another pump, I'll do that too. But if you buy the pump from me, it is a one-time shot, and if anything goes wrong with it, it's on me. The guarantee is under the roof of my business. I will handle it from that point, and that's one of the benefits you get. Now, I'm not saying that I'm charging $500 for that part. What I'm saying is I'm buying a better quality unit. And sometimes you can get confused when looking online for some of the cheap knockoff brands from China that you're unfamiliar with the fact that this is probably going to fail way before you're ready for it to. And if that's the case, what situation will you be in? Well, you'll have a bad fuel pump a year later, and you're going to want it replaced, but you've got to realize that the labor involved in removing the gas tank and taking the fuel pump back out, putting another one in that you're going to provide, and then putting it all back together. If you just have that happen one time, Bob, if it happens just once, you've already spent more than you would have had you just had a good pump put in there in the first place.
Well, I think, here's one thing that, and I know this is the case with you, with you and your customers, and I always want to stress this, is that with something as expensive as a car that you potentially on any given day can spend a lot of money on, because you just never know what's going to happen, is so very important to have a mechanic on your, what I call your team, that you can trust. And I don't think people think about that until they have a car expense come up. But just so very important to know that, I can take it to Tony Joe and I know he's not going to rip me off. I can feel easy about that, whatever, I trust what he says. But man, you're asking for it if you just go to somebody off the street and whether you got an honest person or not, you don't know.
For the guys out there that are listening, I try to explain it clearly and plainly and give you those scenarios up front as to what could happen if you bring me a part off the internet for, a quarter of the cost of what I'm charging. Well, the guys usually can understand it, but to the women out there, I would say this. I try to always relate something that people can understand. And I'm not really sure, don't quote me on this, Bob, but a Gloria Vanderbilt purse. Okay? I don't know. I'm just thinking of a name. I'm sure Gloria Vanderbilt makes purses. I guess they would. And it sounds like a high-class, high-expensive item to me. But if you go to Walmart and you get a knockoff Gloria Vanderbilt purse for $25, I cannot believe that it lasts as long as the good name brand one. I just can't believe it's going to have all the bells and whistles and going to last, not tear, not rip. I don't know, but most of the women listening know what I'm talking about, even if Gloria Vanderbilt doesn't make purses. Compare a good high-end product to a knockoff product.
Like a Coach purse. Coach, C-O-A-C-H.
Gucci?
No,
what
Coach.
Coach.
Coach. You've heard of Coach, haven't you?
No.
Okay.
Well, I had a coach in high school for football, but
Okay, let's move on.
and I don't ride. I don't ever like to ride at coach. I only go first class. If you wanted to send me to Hawaii or something. I mean,
Okay. So Chris had a Chris had a question for you.
okay.
He said, "What do you think of the new AGM car batteries?"
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And I think they're a good idea, generally. Absorbed glass mat. It is a new battery design. It's still a lead-acid battery, but it's a new design of the inside of the battery that allows for less outgassing and longer life. Generally, they'll last longer. Now, let me say this. They do have their drawbacks. You want to be careful when you buy an AGM battery that you don't overbuy. What I mean by that, Bob, is if it's just throwing a number out there, a 700 cold cranking amp battery, you want to have a 700 cold cranking amp battery to replace it with, not an 850 because you think that's going to be better.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It will get overheated.
Stronger, bigger.
Yeah, well, you would think so, but you
Yeah,
really don't
right.
want to do that, especially here in Dallas in this climate and this heat we have. So, AGM batteries, yeah, I mean they've been around a while and they've been proven to be tried and tested, and they're good batteries. You know,
So somebody would buy it for the potential of it lasting longer.
they're
right.
yeah, and some people have to buy it simply because the car won't accept anything less. It's part of
Okay.
the design of the whole charging and starting
Is
system.
that higher end cars
So-
or?
Well, no. A lot of cars, it started with higher end cars, but a lot of cars are, coming down to using AGM batteries. And I'm not so sure it's not just a good idea to use the AGM battery, and you got to be careful about charging them too. AGM batteries are a little more sensitive to overcharging. How we talk about throwing it on the charger for 30 minutes,
Right.
instead of letting it charge for 24 hours at a 2 amp, productivity. But before I forget, I just want to really point out something that I ran into. This is something that a lot of people may not know, and if you haven't run into this, some people have, but for our listeners out there, I had to replace BMW was the particular one that I had. It was an X5 SUV, and had to replace the battery in it, and it took an AGM battery, and the battery went dead, so it had to have a new one. Well, you get in there and you find out there's another auxiliary battery, which is also AGM battery, but it's a smaller battery, and I thought, well, why not just change them both? Because they're both born at the same time, and the car's 5 years old. So I went ahead and replaced both batteries, not really knowing what the auxiliary battery was for, but I knew it was a battery and it had the same date as the other one. So since they're both there, just change them both. And then, guess what you have to do after that? You have to code the battery, and you have to register the battery. And the reason you have to do this is because the charging system was used to charging more and more and more and working harder and harder and harder as that AGM battery disintegrated in output. So the charging system was programmed to charge at a certain rate. If you don't code the battery and re-register it, that resets the alternator and the charging system back to a normal charging rate. If you don't do that, it'll continually charge at that heavy-duty rate and cause the battery to overheat. Because the alternator says, well, we're used to working at this rate. Now you got to plug in the scan tool, and you've got to re-register the battery and code it. A man can't even put a battery in himself anymore. I mean, in some cars. Interesting thing about the auxiliary battery, it's used to add voltage to the charging system when you turn the wheel. The steering is electric, and it needs 24 volts, to turn the front end to pull into a parking spot at Kroger, and then when you're going down the road and there's no effort on the steering, it's not used for that purpose. So 2 batteries. One, the auxiliary one, is used for the power steering.
And this is on a BMW.
Yes, but it's coming in a lot of cars.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.